Good evening. If you've ever visited Tuscany, you've certainly had a close encounter with this region's superb food and wine. Perhaps you've been wine tasting or have a favorite producer that you return to time and again. But say you're interested in going deeper in your knowledge of wine. Now, where do you start? That's the question that sparked the idea for today's chat with 3 Tuscan wine professionals, each of whom is using his or her expertise to communicate and help us learn in a different way. So, welcome to Wine Stories, the talk show with episodes that alternate between English and Italian, and that spotlights people and themes behind Tuscan wine. I'm your host, Alexandra Korey. We're live on the channels of the B2B wine event Buy Wine Toscana and on the English language news magazine, The Florentine, to whom we thank for their hospitality. Now, if you have questions or comments for our speakers today, I would be thrilled if you would write them in the comments area of this live video. We'll bring them up on the screen for discussion. So now let's meet our guests. Joining us from the Siena area, we'll bring up Carlotta here. Joining us from Siena is Carlotta Salvini, Sommelier with the FISAR Association and an expert wine communicator. Hi, Carlotta.
Hi, Alexandra. Hi, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to be on stage. Thank you.
It's good to see you, and I actually see you're wearing the FISAR uniform. Let's get a proper view first.
I'm on the It's I'm really I'm quite proud, and I'm still happy, even if I am at the end of my term of best sommelier, because it's lasted even too long than expected. So
indeed, I wanted to actually mention that. So Carlotta won the Best Italian Sommelier from FISAR 2019. We do have a photograph of you receiving that award. So there's the surprise moment. There you are, receiving the award. And then after that, this is a photo that we took at the Buy Wine press conference, receiving a recognition also from the Superintendent of Agriculture for your contribution to Tuscan wine in early 2020. So congratulations for that.
Thanks.
And so you're still holding this role, I understand, because they didn't have a contest afterwards, right?
Yeah. That's right. Well, it was a really indelible moment. So, and I was really excited, even by the picture. I was looking quite thrilled and excited. Yeah.
It's kind of like being Miss Italia, but for wine.
Well, maybe something a little bit more, but yeah, in terms of wine, yeah, absolutely. But it's something that became quite suddenly, even my passion for wine, because I was not a wine professional in the past, and I was not interested in wine before, because I was studying agronomy first, and then I started this passion about wine when I took part to a harvest. So I started from the land, actually, and these took me in a way that I will never forget. So all the feelings that I had when I was in those lands, in the vineyards, and being part of a team. So this made me feel that that could be a career. So then I started a sommelier course, and then I'm certified sommelier in 2017. And then I felt that there was a way in my work, in my routine, to share this passion. So and I started also to share all my passions about wine. Yeah.
So huge recognition, and an important moment for you. And thank you for telling us a little bit about your path, because actually what we're going to be looking at today. So actually, let's bring up our next guest. We have Daniele Palavisini. Let's ask my team to bring up Daniele. So Daniele is connecting from San Miniato in the Pisa area. Is that correct?
Yes, here I am.
And Daniele is sommelier certified by ICE, the Associazione Italiana Sommelier. So thanks for joining us just before your work night begins. I understand you work in a restaurant, and that's where you are right now.
Yes, I'm in one of the rooms of the restaurant where I work.
So that's why.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear, and it's great to see you.
Yes, that's why I'm sitting on one of the sofas of the restaurant.
Lovely. Now, we know you also like a good challenge, and we have a picture of you winning the Master Chianti Classico in 2020.
Yes.
So this is, if perhaps for you, one of your career highlights. Tell us a little bit about that.
Definitely it was, and was a great pleasure. I have beside me, there is Giovanni Manetti, that is the owner of Fontodi and the president of the Chianti Classico, and it was a real honor. And then winning at home is always a better pleasure, is a greater pleasure. And that was very interesting. I also attended the challenge of the best Italian sommelier, but it wasn't, the result wasn't the same.
Well, we can't all win, but you know they do it every year, so hopefully in the future you will. And let's also bring up Emily. Chianti Classico is actually kind of a theme here, as all four of you have significant experience in this area. Hi, Emily. Good to see you again.
Hi.
Now, Emily, let's say your bio is short. I don't actually have a picture of you winning.
I'm so happy. I was worried about what you could possibly bring up. I was getting nervous, actually. There's too much ammunition, I think.
But there, you know, you do a lot, and you have one heck of a bio. So I sum it up as this: so living the life in the Chianti Classico after experience in London. Emily is a WSET instructor, as you've kind of nicely put in your little name there. WSET instructor and a wine writer. She writes for Decanter magazine. And what else? What am I missing? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm actually Chianti Senesi, which would probably be so I'm 1.2 kilometers. I'm looking towards Chianti Classico, but I live in the Chianti Senesi. I'm just drinking some of the wine from the property that I live on, and I host some tastings here, and I teach level 1, 2, and 3 for WSET. I'm starting another course on Saturday with a group from Castello di Potentino in Seggiano, so Montecucco. And I write for Decanter, but mainly on Tuscany, and Club Enologique, which is another publication. I just finished writing about Chianti Classico for Quench, which is a Canadian magazine, which was really exciting to write for them and to have a Canadian flag on my name badge, which was quite sweet. So that was because the Canadians couldn't come over because of COVID. So I stepped in. So it was quite nice to be representing Canada. So quite busy.
Excellent. So I mean, really the three of you, other than representing Canada in this case for Emily, and I'm Canadian, so heart to you. But the three of you do represent three main associations that manage wine education in Italy. So although we're speaking about you and your careers, we have someone who has done the path from ICE, someone has done it through FISAR, and then Emily WSET, which is the international recognition. So kind of to go around the table, so to speak, I wanted to talk about how each of you contributes on a daily basis to helping people increase their level of wine knowledge. Let's bring up Daniele on that one.
The approach in my case, when I have some meeting as an educator, is to let the people that are listening to me that there is a way of behaving as a pro, and is not much more related to the quantity of things that you know, but in the quality of questions that you are able to do. For example, when you talk with producers, and when you go, when there is a wine fair and you are tasting the wines of a canteen, and you the capability to understand the best information that they can give it to you, and to raise the quality of the things that you are able to understand from that, because otherwise you can remain at home and just enjoy good books about wine. And And then the other thing is that it seems something banal, that I think that to study wine is better to have books in front of you than the cellular phone. That is something that is becoming more and more natural for people. But when you are trying to learn something about wine, you need a little bit more time, because it is a thing that has got to do with time, the passing of time, the time that it takes to make every passage in the life of a wine.
But speaking of time, one thing that you said to me when we were speaking earlier, Daniele, is you have 20 or 30 seconds to explain a wine. So tell me about the context of that. You work in a restaurant. How do you communicate wine there? What's your trick?
I don't think it's a trick. Is the capability to understand which kind of role you have in that moment. Sometimes you are just supporting the thing. Sometimes you're just listening, and this is also not common for the sommelier, that the most of the times doesn't listen to persons and to the customers. And other times you are a sort of therapist, because at the table of 4 or 5 persons, there are persons that want to drink different things, or 3 or 2 of them really don't know what they want to drink. So you try to bring them something new, something that is a little bit beside what they really wanted or they usually have, and then to make them a little bit more aware of what is the wine in, for example, in Tuscany. Talking about Chianti Classico, they come with the same names, and they know the most famous names that they usually find in the supermarkets, that are sometimes very, very good wines, but you try to bring them a little bit beside, and you let them know something different.
Right, so opening up the mind. I love the idea of the sommelier as therapist. Now, talking about sort of how each of you contribute to people's wine knowledge on a regular basis, Carlotta, you do that in 2 ways, I would say. You have kind of 2 lives, but I want to concentrate on, I know you work in a winery, but tell us about the other life, the Instagram one.
Yeah, you're totally right, because I'm a kind of mix between professional and institutional, because I'm right now representing the role of sommelier in the FISAR, and I used to teach to the sommelier course to the beginner and to the other people a little bit more advanced. So it's a kind of way where I love to mix the professional profile and the more approachable and easy drinking now, but easy going way to communicate. I work also on the social media. I'm on both Instagram and Facebook, and I love to share my passion about wine in a more easy way, because I believe that the social media are used mostly from the younger people. And if you want to communicate to younger people, you got to be a little bit more accessible and try to don't use too much professional terms, but try to translate all those professional terms in an easy way. And I think this is the best way to involve people in the wine. Wine is perceived from the younger people as something exclusive, which is not actually, because wine is a culture for everybody. The wine is a history, wine is tradition. And if you want to travel to somewhere else, you love to try the food or the wines or the traditions of that place. So I strongly believe that to get more people into the wine, you gotta communicate to the younger ones, and you gotta do it in an easy way. So don't be too much conservative, or don't be too much strict in using the right perfect terms. You have to do it in the right context.
I couldn't agree more. And actually, in terms of wine and accessibility, I think Emily is a really good example of that. Emily, tell us a little bit about your approach about making wine accessible.
Well, I try to keep toe the line, because the course that I teach, the WSET, is quite famous for its systematic approach, which is about understanding the look, the smell, the taste of the wine, the aftertaste, and analyzing these things quite kind of scientifically, like describing things as medium plus and medium minus. And for me, it's really instrumental to have this approach, because I'm so illogical and so not systematic. So for me, this course was like was the key to everything, to understand wine in this kind of almost sort of scientific way. And then to have these bones, it kind of gives you the bones, and from that you can really begin to flesh it out with your own tasting notes. So I really like to help people kind of understand the wine in this very technical fashion, and then flesh it out, go crazy with it once they have that grounding and that kind of background. So I think I really needed the WSET in my wine journey. Otherwise, I think I just would have always been talking about it in ways that are a little bit too flowery and not maybe that kind of relative. Like the things I enjoy most about wine are probably things that most personal to me. Like I might find something in a wine that reminds me of a certain person, or you might not get that because you've never smelled that person or tasted that person. So you I think it's all very personal, and I think you really need to have a relationship with the wine, and trying to encourage people to kind of be confident in the enjoyment of a wine. And I always I mean, ultimately enjoyment is the key factor, and there's got to be a way of like we don't get so hung up on any other food or drink, I don't think. And when it comes to wine, people get nervous or anxious, and I think the key thing is how do you tune into the wine? Like, how do you make it easy to tune into the wine and take as much pleasure from it as possible? Because there's so much pleasure to be had.
Carlotta, you look like you agree and you wanted to.
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking that what Emily was saying. So WSET, on my opinion, because I'm studying as well WSET. I'm a diploma student, and I what I really like of this approach is that the WSET makes you connect the different topics of the wine. It's something that is really important when you wanna have a deeper knowledge into the wine, and if you wanna communicate much better. So if you want to think, let's just for give an example, if you think about Chardonnay, there are Chardonnay from California, there are Chardonnay from Burgundy. What are the main difference between them? New word, old word. There is this kind of approach that makes you connect all the different topics in the wine, the winemaking styles, the different types of way that a winery can do to make their own wines. And this makes you connect all these different segments of this whole huge world, and it makes you be everything much easier to not just to understand, but also to communicate. And this is something that is less related to the to the territory, but is more related to how the wine is made and how there can be so many different styles of wines. So not just the territory, but also the style of a winery. So it's and this makes you enrich also the way you can communicate also how a wine is made and related to also a specific territory.
Yeah, indeed. Also, I mean, wine has the personal factor, right? So wine is about territory, and it's about who's making it specifically.
Human, yeah.
Which is great. And that's something, actually, I mean, I don't want to steal the words from Daniele, but you were talking a little bit about that before, Daniele. You really were, I swear. I learned from you. Now, before though, let's get back to the human factor. This is Wine Stories. And one of the things that I'm always interested in is when, there's people like the three of you have such a huge encyclopedic knowledge of wine, and you're still learning. But before all that study, there's always an origin story. So, something that kicks off a lifetime of passion. And this is where I'm going to come clear a little bit with my personal story. My story is this. So I came to Florence as a student of art history. I moved here for my love of Italian culture, art and culture. And over the years, I realized that I was missing this whole part of culture because I actually didn't drink wine. So 5 years ago, I made a conscious decision to learn more about wine. And I was starting here because I'm here in Tuscany, so it's a logical place to be. And there's so many ways to just, when you're here, to just go and taste things. And every wine shop has a huge range. And if you're interested enough, you can go and you can spend like every single weekend and never finish. So today's chat actually comes from this idea that I want to pick your brains and set out ideas for my own learning and for other travelers and Tuscany lovers who, like me, are at the beginning of a path. So, you know, until now we've talked about professional training, ICE, and WSET. But first, let's think about that aha moment when your taste buds lit up and you said, "Wait, this is my job." And the trick question is, what role does Tuscany play in that? Let's ask Daniele.
Well, I used to work in a canteen, in a big canteen, since when I was about 21. And then I worked there for 9 years, and then I spent there some time in the stocking area, some time in the marketing. I did a lot of things, but and they also sold very good wines, also French meats and things like, I don't know, Chateau Lafite and Margaux. And I had the opportunity to enter in contact with a lot of persons, but I didn't have the spring. And so I quitted my job in the canteen and I went to do other things in the marketing. Not being so good as a seller, I had to find a job because I was without money. And I wanted to work in a kitchen. And then I found a job as a waiter, as it is natural when you're 30. And you cannot begin really very well, very easily in a kitchen. And as long as I began, I had this culture of wine, and I knew something about tasting because I had friends that were sommeliers, but I was not so involved. When I began to work in the restaurant where I work in Papaveri, then I had the responsibility to buy wine, and I had the responsibility to share my opinions with persons. So day by day, I understood that I had to have a culture. And I understood that I had something to say when there were questions, because also for my self-respect, let's say that I wanted to be able to answer. But then we opened another little enoteca, a little wine shop here in San Miniato. And then I had the opportunity to enter in contact with because of a guy, one of the partners is a very good sommelier, and he works for a famous distribution. And he was there by chance, let's say. And I entered in contact with him. And he taught me something, and he also said to me, you have to have a professional diploma and go to ICE because they have a very good course in Florence, etc., etc. I went there, and one day, the aha moment is this. We had a tasting of the Sodaccio di Montevertine in our enoteca. There was Manetti, and there were journalists and sommelier, and I was not invited to sit. And this was the greater lesson, because I was one of the owners and I was not invited. And then I understood that that was not my place yet, and not to as an award, but as something that you can you do some step. I understood that you have to do some step just to reach places where you can learn more, and that was the spring in my case. And then a lot of good wine, because I understood that there was another life. I understood, I don't know, real Bourgogne producers. So the ones that are now famous, but they weren't 10 years ago, for example. Or I understood the Tuscany and Pinot Noir coming from the Appennino, and they didn't exist. They were they're having their birth in those years, and this was my real beginning.
So for you, really, it's a process. It was a job. It was finding a way to get invited to that table with the big boys and being able to comment on the good stuff. It was.
Yes, but when you are at the table with the big boys, you go on learning. You don't arrive there and you say something. If it's asked, you say your opinion, and also if it is not. But it's not about this. It's much more about being to have the possibility to understand how people that are really expertise, that are really experts of some specific area know and wants to communicate what they do, and in a formal occasions, like I don't know, official tastings or on the magazines. Sometimes they doesn't, or sometimes they keep for themselves something that usually they think. That's what is being closer and just looking them in the. Sometimes you go to I don't know, to good producers and they just say I'm too tired, and you wanted to go there to understand what was the secret of their story, to have a funny storytelling, and otherwise you understand there is a lot of job, sometimes just a lot of job beyond the great wine.
Well, it is. It's both a job and it's something that inspires a lot of us. But considering that most of us aren't going to become nearly as professional as you are, but I'm still interested to know, for example, Emily, what your origin story is. How did you end up in Tuscany and involved in wine here?
So I studied wine. It was quite tactical because when I left university, I did a degree that was completely non-vocational. It was pretty hopeless. I kind of went to university just to have the kind of campus experience and the social experience. I didn't really know where I was going in life or what I wanted for my degree. And so when I left, I had no options really. And so I thought, well, what do I really love about what do I really love? And so I love food. I love going out for dinner. I love cooking for my friends. But I thought, oh God, working in a kitchen is so hard and like sweaty and like maybe terrifying and underground. And so I thought maybe I could transfer my passion for flavors and textures and hospitality, I suppose. And maybe I could just transfer that to wine. And so I while I was thinking about all of this, I kind of went via a flotation tank. On the way to a flotation tank, I saw this place advertised called Vinopolis, which is a wine museum. And I thought, oh, maybe I could go and see if I could get work experience at this wine museum and begin to sort of start transferring my passion for food to wine. And I didn't get work experience. I got offered a job, which was quite surprising. They must have been really, really desperate because I had no background in wine at all. And this wine museum really fortuitously was next door to the headquarters of the WSET wine school. So the wine museum paid for me to do my WSET, and that was a really transformative time because you go to this wine school a bit like, I feel it's a bit like Hogwarts. Like you go to your wine school with your pack of 6 glasses and you sit there and you study this incredible subject. And we on one of the lessons we had these awful ISO glasses, which is just horrendous. In these 3 glasses we had 3 red Burgundy. And we had to try and work out which was like the Grand Cru, the Premier Cru, and the Village wine. And there was one wine that made me feel that I was not in that room and that I was in the theatre. That I could almost smell like ballet shoes and tutus, and I could see the red curtains going up and the ballet dancer like pirouetting, and it was just such an incredible moment. And then there was another moment with another wine a bit further down the line in a wine bar that made me blush. I felt so embarrassed by what I remembered from the smell of that wine. And I loved it. And that one was really cool because it was just so physical. Like I wasn't even thinking like intellectually or using my brain to think. I just responded to the wine by going bright red, to which people noticed. And I couldn't explain why I was going red because it was too embarrassing to say. But I just loved that the wine could do that. And then it was a bit of an addiction. Like I just want to tune into the next wine to see if it's going to give me some crazy image or like what's it going to do. And then I guess the final wine that just put me on my path to Italy was a wine from the Sesti family in Montalcino that make amazing Brunello, but it was their Rosso di Montalcino, and it must have been in 2006, I think. So it must have been their 04, and it was just, it wasn't even their Brunello, it was their Rosso, and it was just so kind of salty and sweet, and like I didn't pick out any fruit in particular. It was kind of much more elemental than that, and it made me want to come here. Like I wanted to be here. I would do anything and so I came over in 2014 and with a view to stay. So those 3 wines, I guess, really put me on my path to wine.
What an incredible story. Listen, you know, we have a comment that really brings us right on track. So I don't need to ask the questions because Paul here is saying he's moving to Florence in 1 week. So awesome. And congratulations to you, Paul, for this huge step. Says he wasn't much of a wine drinker, and so maybe he should learn. So Carlotta, where should Paul start?
So that's a very interesting question, and it's maybe the one of the questions that people are asking me the most, also in my channels and in the social media, because the hardest part in the wine knowledge is that sometimes the people struggle to find the right way to know more about wine, and sometimes they can. Well, maybe it's not, but sometimes the people find the wine knowledge a little bit intimidating sometimes, and so that's the most common question that I receive also in my social media. Start step by step, so don't be overwhelmed by the tons of information that are in the world of wine. But start step by step, even just looking at the label of the wine, looking at how the territory where the wine is made, looking at if it has a particular wine appellation or wine region. So this is in your daily routine. Even if you just go to a supermarket, try to be more aware once you pick up a bottle once you go in the supermarket. So it's just an easy, small steps, but makes you feel more aware once you purchase a bottle of wine. And then, of course, there can be books, there can be so many different ways to approach to the wine knowledge. But these, in your daily steps, daily routine, these are the main ones that makes you feel a little bit more aware. Alexandra, I can't hear you.
Alexandra, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Please.
Daniele, I was wondering about, just that, about continuing your wine knowledge. Is there something that people can do in their daily lives that you can add to what Carlotta was saying, to keep learning about wine?
What I suggest is to have a sort of daily routine, and to begin paying a lot of attention, being a sort of meditation for 10 minutes every day when you drink or when you eat something, and you try to find a method, and or if you're not attending let's say a class in one of the associations that are doing this kind of courses, but you're just having something like a self-educated wine lover, and but do something every day. When I wake up in the first half an hour, usually I give it a fast look at the sites that I'm used to give a look. I don't know, there are a lot, but I look at Wine Surf, Intravino, Wine Searcher, and the Wine Searcher is lovely for this, because you have the opportunity to find the best wines from every region, and it is really easy to use, and it is something that I use a lot. Apart for books, is one of the things that I use more. And I would begin from a literary point of view, because there are many beautiful books that are written on wine, and then they explain something that has got to do with how to do with your own taste, or that explain a philosophical point of view of tasting wine. Because sometimes if you begin with technical things, as long as you have to learn the different appellations of, I don't know, Piedmont, that is also interesting. After that, you've studied Barolo, Barbaresco, and 2 other things, it becomes a little bit boring. But if you find a meaning, if you find the way to understand which kind of culture and philosophy there is in every appellation, it is a little bit easier if you have an intellectual attraction toward wine. But every day, something every day.
It's definitely easier to just go there, right? To go there and drink it. So we travel, and experience, I would say, should be coupled with that. And maybe for a beginner, easier, more approachable to do that than to try to memorize places when you do.
Yes, I work in a restaurant, so I have family, so children, and so for me it's not so easy, because I always think I know it's easier, more beautiful to go around. I always talk to people that the most of the times when I do some sort of classes for my colleagues and for colleagues of other restaurants, I speak to persons that are almost always standing, and when they have the opportunity to go, they do that. But I say, if you want to improve your capabilities in tasting wines every day, I mean that you have to stand and to make it alone, because sharing is a part, but doing it alone, drinking a glass of wine by yourself a quarter of an hour is an exercise that the most of the pros also don't do so often, and I think is very interesting.
It's interesting too.
Oh, well,
so taking
I
away
love
the
tasting
stigma.
blind. I love
That's
tasting
true.
blind, but not just to guess the wines, but because you pay a lot of attention to the textures and the feelings, and not that much in making a comment, making let's say an intelligent comment about what you're drinking.
So so out of that we have drinking alone, which is awesome, because a lot of people don't feel that's okay. But so we should definitely do that and awaken our senses to be more attentive to that. I would add travel. We've got reading, and catching up on wine news. So Emily, if you want to add anything to that, do you want to add anything to sort of daily exercises to get better? 1 minute for that, and then we're going to go to our last question.
I guess all I would say is that when you taste wine, just to really fill your mouth up with it and look ugly and gargle with it. I mean, it just seems so uncouth and everything, but I just think it's like, particularly Italian wines, they're really tactile, and so like just to do that, like as if you were eating ramen, like to slurp it and like fill your mouth with it to really feel the wine. I think you can learn so much from the texture and the kind of shape of the wine if you really kind of fill your mouth and do that slurpy thing. And it doesn't, I know it looks as if a bit self-conscious, but it's a really cool thing to do. And also, if you go to a dinner party, I would say to the host, maybe before that, you might ask this, but open every bottle, like open all the bottles that everyone brings, and then you can try them together. Because I think tasting one wine on its own can be really quite challenging. If you think, is that high acid or or is it full body? And actually, when you put them next to each other, you learn so much. It's so much easier if you have like 3 white wines next to each other, and then one's kind of maybe a bit more oaky than the other, or you taste another, it feels kind of more lemony or something. But I think drinking or tasting a wine on its own can be sometimes a little bit nerve-wracking. But when you have 3 altogether, then you really start to see the difference. And I think the difference between drinkers and professionals, I guess, is that so often we get the opportunity to try like 10 wines next to each other, 15 wines, 50 wines, and the normal drinker just has their bottle of wine open of an evening, and it's I think it's easier to learn when you have more bottles open. So I'm advocating that you open more bottles all at once, and drink them all at once too. But at least have them open so that you can try. It's really hard to learn, I think, just if you have in a solitary bottle. If you're kind of gearing to trying to understand differences and things, it's kind of easier to have otherwise it just smells like a red wine or it just smells like a white wine. But when you've got 3 red wines, you're like, there's differences here. And everyone can get them. I really believe everyone has the capacity to appreciate wine. It's really not, as Carlotta was saying, it's really not exclusive. It's really a lot of fun to be had. And I think the younger you are and the more beginner you are, the luckier you are. Because I really miss my days as a beginner in wine, because everything was so, I remember the wine so well in the first 5 years of my wine education, my wine study, my wine loving, because they're like all this, there's so many firsts. And then I got to be very lucky and got to try many fine wines, and I don't remember them as well as I did from that beginning period. And so I think if you're a beginner watching this, then you're looking ahead to the best bit of getting into wine, because it's a really exciting beginning. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers. So no, I didn't prepare the ticker that says drink wine responsibly while drinking your wine and opening 3 different bottles. But yeah, definitely.
Let's not mention that.
But drink wine responsibly also, while using all the opportunities possible to taste a lot of different kinds. We have a little visual problem with Carlotta. I'm going to ask you're back. I'm going to ask Carlotta our last question. I'm switching it. I was going to ask Emily, but this is for you, our born and bred Tuscan, one of 2 on the screen. What's our favorite wine region, and why is it Tuscany? There's only one answer.
I have to answer Tuscany, by the way, because it's absolutely my favorite wine region. And even because it's the region that made me feel in love with the wine. So, and as I was gonna say before, my exposure in the wine world began when I took part to a harvest in one of the winery in the Chianti Classico, and then I'm working right now for another winery. I've been working for 6 years as a wine hospitality manager, and every time I have a little bit of free time, I love to visit around. And as you I've been to Montecucco region, which is a wine region that I've it's about 1 hour when I'm from where I'm living, and I've never been ever. So it's I've never been before. So it was a discover, and I did an e-bike ride. So I love to visit new places in Tuscany, and Tuscany has a lot of different spots and different territories inside. There is the coast, there is a mountain, there is the Chianti region, which has a kind of different vineyards and altitudes, and there is even a huge difference in soils that makes even just a single grape variety, the Sangiovese, taste much different. Another amazing wine region is, which I personally love, but I've never been there, and it's one of my next probably trips, is Sardinia. I love Sardinia so much because I find that has some similarities with Tuscany, because the sea has the mountain, has the part in the center, which is amazing for Cannonau and Vermentino. So it's a beautiful wine region, and one of the probably it's gonna be in the next years even more attractive.
Well, thank you for that, and we're glad to hear that Tuscany's top on your list. Our time really is up. We even went a little bit long, so I want to thank all 3 of you for joining us today and taking this time. And thanks to our team behind the scenes and to the Florentine for hosting us. So yeah, cheers, Emily. My glass is empty. It's just a prop. But thank you to all of you. I'll turn on everyone's mic so everyone can say goodbye, and we're gonna sign off.
Ciao.
Thanks a lot. Ciao.
Ciao a tutti. Thanks again.
Cheers. Ciao, ciao, ciao.